Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial as One's Belonging series, where we explore the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. And you know what? This is all about their stories. It's about what it is that's helped them to get to where they are, whether young or old. What were the experiences? And so today, I'm really happy that we've got a young man with vision and an ambition. His name is Quentin Smith, and Quentin is a PhD student at the MRC, London Institute of Medical Sciences. And today, Quentin is going to give us he's going to share his sense of identity and belonging. So Quentin, I want to just say a really big thank you for choosing to be with us today. I'm going to kick off with a question which I always ask, which is, can you give me a little bit of a sense of what it was or what it is that gave you your sense of belonging, your sense of identity as you were growing up?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to say a big thank you for having me on this show and inviting me onto this series. It's very humbling and of great honor. So yeah, in terms of belonging, I guess it can always it trace all the way back to your parents.
Mhm.
So I'd say my mum was a single mother. She raised three children, my older brother and me and my twin sister, all in Hackney, East London. So yeah, she was a single mother. She raised us. Um, yeah, she raised us, and yeah, I guess it can go further backwards in time, where she was born in Jamaica,
Mhm.
and she came over to the UK in like the late 60s, early 70s. So in that Windrush, that era.
Yeah.
But in terms of belonging, I've been thinking about this question for a while. Like even when you asked me the other day, and it almost makes you want to be put into like a category. And in
Mhm.
terms of categories, I could say, first of all, I'm Black.
Mhm.
You can see that from my skin color.
Mhm.
I'm British. I was born
Mhm.
in the UK,
Mhm.
and of Caribbean heritage, so of that Jamaican heritage and that culture behind me. But in terms of like belonging, I feel like there's a bit more to belonging, and you can almost say belonging can hold some values and things that you were brought up with. So I was always taught to, be kind. It's always free to be kind,
Mhm.
to help others because
Mhm.
others may be in need of help, and you never know the situation where you might be in need of help. And
Mhm.
to always be hardworking,
Mhm.
to work hard, to work twice as hard. I was always taught that as a child because it's not easy being a minority. So
Mhm.
that's what I would say. It would give me my sense of belonging.
You mentioned the fact that your mother was a single parent who raised
Yeah.
you to have these values
Mm.
and to keep those values in mind. Can you give me an illustration of, because they're very noble values which she's instilled in you, being kind, looking out for others. Where in your life have they kind of like been really implicit in helping you find out who you are?
That's a good question. Well, I think I carry those through just day to day.
Mhm.
I think the smaller interactions that happen on your day to day, just saying hello to people, holding the doors for people,
Mhm.
and when your friends are like in troubling situations, helping them, giving them advice. I feel like those small things I carry on through day to day interactions, and yeah, I think that's what I think about
Yeah,
that.
no,
And
no,
sure.
that's fantastic. So tell me about when you were at school, because there's always this stigma about single parents, etc. Um,
Mm.
but your mother has done a fantastic job with yourself. How is it that can you give us a counter narrative to the kind of like young Black guy, single parent, but you're achieving? Why?
Why? Um, I think I think my mom did a very good job. Yeah, she did a very good job raising me and my other siblings. And I feel like despite growing up, well, she was always very busy. She had several jobs. She was studying.
Mhm,
She did a degree in religion and theology. Despite all of that, she always made time to, help me with homework, or trying to come to the parent teacher days, stuff
mhm,
like this. So her being very active in terms of my school like needs, in a sense, um definitely broke the stigma of being a single parent, because those connotations that come with it. She definitely broke the mold in that sense, for sure.
mhm, mhm. And so yourself and your sister and your brother, um, you're
Yeah.
all you all had that sense that your mother was there for you, that you could not do what you wanted, but that she was always going to be looking out for you no matter what.
Yeah,
Maybe
100%.
sense of security, you had that.
Yeah, definitely. And I can say I'm quite fortunate to have that, because
Mhm,
others might not have that
mhm.
in their cases. So I'm quite fortunate and grateful to have had that, to have that in my life. And I can definitely say it did play a big part in my maturation into who I am now,
Yeah.
for sure.
And you also mentioned that your mother was studying. So do you think
Yeah.
that it was from her example of showing the importance of education, which has helped you to value education?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. The importance of education was definitely instilled into us, for sure. I have like vivid memories of being a child, and she put us to bed, and she's like right next to the bed of the computer. She used to have like an e-machine. So I don't know if you guys remember e-machines, that old computer, typing away, typing out her dissertations. And yeah, and even then when we were growing up in education, she always says, work hard, make sure you don't skip out on your studies, always do your work first, then you can play later. And,
Mhm,
it's like trying to develop that balance within life, because, it's quite, it, you need to have an education in order to, progress yourself
mhm,
in life. You
mhm,
need to have the fundamentals instilled with you. And I think that
mhm.
she definitely did that.
But I always think I love that she motivated you, helped to motivate you. But growing up as a young man, were there never points where you thought of, I'm not sure about this, I want to go and do my own thing? Did you ever have those, and how or were you just always, I really enjoy the education?
I feel like, I guess I'm kind of the odd one out. I always enjoyed education. I always liked, in particular, science.
Yeah.
I did have my times where in school where, I'd be having arguments, or like things that might stray me away from, focusing at work. But I was always pushed back onto the straight and narrow, not only just by my mum, but
Mhm,
by teachers and mentors that I had
mhm.
along the way through my career. Yeah.
So there were other people who supported you. Did they see, you said that you enjoyed school and stuff. Um, Growing up in Hackney,
Mm,
quite multicultural area. Um,
yeah.
not if I'm making an assumption. I suspect that based on what media would want to portray, that not
Yeah.
everybody in the school necessarily were always wanting to achieve. Am I wrong in that?
Um,
Or did you not
yeah.
notice? Or
I think it's a somewhat fair judgment to make.
Mhm,
But I feel like despite there being some students who are, not very interested in, following through in education, the teachers there, they were definitely making an effort to try and keep everyone involved, and trying to keep everyone on the right path. I mean, I guess that's the role of a teacher, not only just to teach, but to mentor and make sure your
mhm.
pupils are doing good things, and try and keep them on the right path. Yeah.
Fantastic. So as you said, you had a number of mentors or a number of teachers who,
Yeah.
is there any in particular? And can you give us any illustrations of how they kind of like grounded the young Quentin?
Yeah, in particular, in secondary school, Dr. Mostert. He was a very fundamental player in my secondary school career, because he really saw the passion that I had for, education and
Mhm.
just trying to do well for myself. And anytime I used to stray away or have arguments or like, have confrontations, he always used to, tell me it's not worth it, focus on this. Don't worry about this. He always used to he always used to say, if you nip the small things in the bud first, then bigger problems won't be so much of an issue.
Yeah.
So for sure, he was always there um during my secondary school. And I did have some more mentors during like sixth form and during my undergraduate too.
Hmm. So what was it that drew you to science in particular? Yeah, what was the curiosity factor, or what was it that drew you into science?
So I used to really love biology. So I
Mhm.
still do. I'm still
Okay.
studying biology in a sense now. So in a sense, I always was fascinated of how things work.
Mhm.
And at one point, I was actually more interested in medicine, in actually becoming a medical doctor. But when I grew up, I decided, well, I didn't really decide. I figured that I didn't really like the hospital environment and seeing people in dire situations, but
Mhm.
I did like to understand how the fundamental mechanisms work and
Mhm.
how, when they go wrong, how do we fix them? So
Mhm.
this is why I was really interested in, and yeah, I that's where my interest in science really came about, is trying to understand how to fix these problems that occur.
Mhm. So how to fix, was there any where was the pivotal point where you kind of like thought to yourself, I want to know how this works, I want to know, can you think about it, or was it always there?
It was always there,
Hmm.
but a point at which it really did kick in was um during my undergraduate degree. So I went to the University of Kent
Yeah.
in Canterbury, and yeah, I really enjoyed the practicals in the undergraduate
Hmm.
sessions. But then afterwards, I was speaking to my academic advisor, Dr. Francis Mansfield, and I was expressing, oh, I really enjoy, the practical sense of science. Now, how do I, do this more often? Because, you're always stuck in lectures, listening to these hour lectures about compartmentalization of cells and all these types of things. I like the practical aspect of doing a science. So I spoke to her, and she liked the enthusiasm I had towards that, and she put me in touch with my previous supervisor, Dr.
Hmm.
Neil Cad.
Hmm.
And he took an interest in my interest in science, and essentially we, did some summer placements and got some summer studentships to do science as well. Um, so yeah, I feel like that was like the key stepping stone
So
into getting
so
into.
so it was one, you having the passion, you had the
Mhm.
passion for it, but then you also, your academic advisors were there to help you and to give you a try this, and they
Yeah, for
support.
sure.
So there was a lot of support that you received.
Yeah, and I'm definitely very grateful for that support, because I know just from speaking to my other peers at the time that some of them didn't have that support, and
Wow.
some of the academic advisors wouldn't have time for their meetings or
Mhm.
wouldn't push them as well. But I was very fortunate to have my advisors and mentors to keep me going, and I'm very grateful, because if it wasn't for that first step, I
Mhm.
don't know where I'd be right now, right?
Right,
So
right. So
yeah.
how many not supervisors, how many projects did you do with your academic supervisors, and how long were they?
So with Neil, I did a summer placement in my second, I believe it was my first or second year of uni.
Yeah.
Um, During the summer, I spent about 8 weeks of studying just the basics in science. I was doing hundreds of mini preps, just running a bunch of gels, doing he really did like set up the core fundamentals of like lab work.
Mhm.
And then because, I was confident in that, and I enjoyed working in the lab, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed, his work style and the team around it, we then did a second placement. So we applied for a summer studentship
Yeah.
by the Genetic Society, and we actually investigated. We actually did a project now, not just the fundamentals, and we
Yeah.
were investigating this DNA protein, DNA repair protein called UVRD, and its role in transcription. And yeah, that's what we did. So I had one main project, but prior to that, we were doing like some fundamentals. Yeah. And
So
those are all during the summers.
those are so in
Yeah,
your summer holidays, when other people were going back home, you were staying on at the
yeah,
university and honing your skills and honing your desire.
yeah, definitely. That was my summers. If I wasn't like working, I would be in the lab. Like, yeah,
Yeah. And it
yeah.
didn't put you off.
No, not at all. Clearly
Clearly.
not. Clearly not. I'm still here. I'm still here, thankfully.
No,
Still here.
no, that's excellent experience in being able to have had that experience. And did that give you a clearer mindset as to what it was that you wanted to do?
Yeah, definitely it did, because I definitely just enjoy. I wasn't really fond of exams and writing dissertations and stuff.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, I did okay in them, but I wasn't the best in them.
Okay.
I preferred being practical and
Yeah.
trying to understand. Do the experiment, see, think, oh, what's this hypothesis? Do the
Yeah.
experiment. Is this true?
Yeah.
Yay. If not, okay, let's rewrite. Let's
Yeah.
rewind. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, and yeah, that kind of honed in my passion for that science, and I ended up doing a master's. Ended up staying staying with Neil and then doing a
Yeah.
master's again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it was in a different project, but
Yeah.
it's same batch of skills.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you're more of what we'd call an experiential learner. You like to learn as you're going through the experience, and
yeah,
from that's where you derive your passion for the subject. Is that,
definitely.
would I be right in
Yeah,
saying that?
that's a fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So after doing all that, you still wanted to do science, clearly, right?
yeah,
There was another question that I wanted to ask, because you said that although you got that support, that many of your peers didn't. So
yeah.
can you explain what happened to them? How, as a Black student at the university, did you see any differential patterns? Was there anything that kind of like stood out to you?
Yeah. So I guess it kind of falls down to different supervisors or different academic advisors. They all
Mhm,
have like all their commitments. They have their lectures,
mhm,
they have to run their lab, they have to go
mhm,
to meetings, etc. And in some cases they didn't have time to support their students. And
mhm.
in particular, I noticed that throughout my
Hello?
but throughout the years I saw less and less Black students in my course and just in campus in general. And I was thinking, you know, why are they leaving, and
Mhm.
is it going to be me next? But fortunately, like with the support and the help I had, it wasn't me next, and
Yeah.
I kept on going.
So what was it, would you say, was that stopped you from leaving? Why was it not you next, kind of thing? And did you ever ask any of your colleagues why it was that they felt that they couldn't continue?
Yeah, well, some that I've spoke to, they would have said that it's just the it's too much pressure. First of all,
Mhm,
it is quite hard.
mhm,
Education isn't easy. Higher education isn't easy.
mhm.
It isn't hard, but it becomes exponentially harder when you don't have a support network, when you don't have people around you to keep you going, to keep you motivated, and to help you when times are hard. And that's what I had, fortunately. And without what I had, I don't think I would have made it nearly as far as I have now.
Yeah. So you had the support, but you think
Yeah,
that had you not had the support, the
yeah,
the probability, not probability, there was a possibility, I'm not going to say probability, there was a possibility that you too would have felt the potential struggle which they were feeling.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
So you had mentors that helped you.
Yeah.
Did any of the mentors look like you, or were they? Did you?
No, they didn't look like me actually.
Yeah.
They didn't look like me. So Frances Mansfield, she's a white lady,
Mm-hmm.
and Neil Cadd, he's British, but he's of Asian
Mm-hmm.
descent.
Mm-hmm.
So I they didn't look like me, and I don't recall ever seeing any people or academics in like in a term of like a PI or a lecturer of being a minority or being black in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of throws me onto, how I don't know if you've seen all like these statistics where
Mm-hmm.
there's like less than 1% of black professors in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes sense when if these students are trickling down even in the undergraduate level, and how many can actually make it through the postgraduate level to even make it to a professorship. And it is a shame that this is
Mm-hmm.
the case, but with initiatives like mentoring and like EDI, we can hopefully make changes to increase these numbers.
Right. So you touched on a couple of really, really big points there. When you spoke about the fact that the numbers were dwindling, you didn't necessarily see anybody in positions of lecturer or let me just ask one question. Were you ever taught by a black academic?
No,
No. Right.
no,
Okay. So thinking back throughout your entire time at university, you were never taught by a black academic.
no.
Um, and you didn't see any black PIs, principal investigators, lecturers, professors. And as you've already highlighted, there's a number of statistics which show that there is a lack in this area. So what is it when kind of like when you're faced with all of that? I still have to ask that question. Why is it that you didn't feel I want to leave?
Because I want to make the change, right? I
Oh.
feel like I want to make that change. I want to be one day, hopefully, God
Mhm,
willing, I want to be that black professor
mhm,
in the science. I want to, motivate and be inspiration to the younger or the next generation of you know people from minorities, to show them that despite all of these hardships, despite you know seeing all of these things firsthand, you can still make it.
mhm,
That's what I want to do. And I'm still in my infancy. I'm still only just a PhD student, so I still have a long way to go.
mhm.
But with my optimism and my persistence, I one day would like to change that narrative.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm fast tracking to your PhD because I want to come back to that. So with that kind of like motivation in mind to say that you want to be a black academic, etc. I'm just putting it out there for anybody's listening. This is someone we need to fast track to get his professorship. All right, I'm putting it out there for all you who are listening. Right. So what I wanted to know is in terms of like getting in to do your PhD, was that straightforward? How many PhD applications did you have to put forward? And did you find it a daunting process?
That's a good question. So I had 2 rounds of actually applying for a PhD. So straight after my undergraduate, I applied for a few PhDs
Mhm,
with the help of my mentors like my Neil and Francis, but I didn't get into any of those.
mhm.
Yeah, it was unsuccessful.
Yeah.
But what was successful was Neil offering me the masters, which actually gave me. I felt at the time I was very skilled in the lab, but it gave me an extra level of skill and extra level of independence
Mhm,
to lead a project and actually prepare me a bit better than I would have been if I went straight to a PhD. So then I then applied for a few PhD positions, and I in particular applied for one at the LMS,
Mhm.
It wasn't necessarily a daunting process,
Mhm.
but a long-winded process nonetheless. So I spoke to my supervisor, asked him about the PhD role and the supervisor, and Neil was like, "Oh yeah, I know David. Yeah, he's a good PI. You know, he's seen him at several conferences. He's like, yeah, go for it." So I contacted David Ryder, who's my current PI, and yeah, well, I came to London, met up, talked about the project, talked about the application process, and then yeah, he said as long as you put in a good application, we'll get this rolling, we get into interviews, and then we can go from there.
Nice.
So yeah, I sent in the application form, and yeah, I thought I did a really good application form actually, because I filled it out, I had all my information, I sent it early, made sure everything was done right on time, but I was actually rejected for interview from the
Mhm.
start. So that was, I guess, in some way, a hurdle, a
Mhm.
daunting hurdle at
Mhm.
start, because I was very confused. I was like, so I contacted David, I did all this, I made sure it's fine. Why am I getting rejected? So I emailed David and asked why, what's going on? Like,
Mhm.
we spoke like it should be fine. And then he was like, okay, not to worry, let me sort some things out. And then thankfully, luckily, um, yeah, we were invited for interview. And that interview process was very interesting.
Mhm.
Because like when I came to the interview, I was literally the only Black interviewee in that
Mhm.
room. So there was like a whole seminar room filled with about, I think it was 50, 60 people.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, I was the only Black person in that room, apart from the Black admin lady at the time. She was in
Right.
there, but I was the only one being interviewed.
Yeah.
Um, so
Have
if David did not actually pursue uh, the interest of me being interviewed, then there'd been zero.
Yeah.
So you can see where, how I was
Mm.
saying, like through an undergraduate, it's less and less and less, and professorship, there's
Less and
less
less.
than 1%.
Yeah.
You can see where these checkpoints throughout someone's career, you can see where they may be stopped.
So tell me something. When you found yourself in that room and you looked around and you said, "Hell, I'm the only one."
Yeah.
Did you even have that perception? Was it something that you noticed afterwards, or did it affect you when you were going through that whole interview process?
It it hit me straight away, right?
All
Like
right. Okay.
as soon as I went in, I was just like, because you think of London as a very multicultural place, it's the hotspot of the UK,
Yeah.
people coming from everywhere. Um, but yeah, there's a lack of diversity even from the initial application, like interviewing stage.
Yeah.
So it was a very stark contrast to what you think of a society and
Hmm.
what is actually happening within an institute, within actual
Hmm.
academia.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I did notice it. But I didn't let it affect me too much at the time, because I was very focused on making sure I presented. So the interview, you had to like read a paper, talk about this paper, answer questions, and they ask you about yourself and stuff like that. I wanted to make sure I give the best interview as possible.
Yeah.
And I think I did, because even after the interview, one of the PIs, one of our colleagues now, he actually commended me of my interview, because he said I answered the questions very well.
Fantastic. So you didn't let the obvious kind of like, no, the obvious situation of being the only one stand in your way of you knew who you were,
Yeah,
but you had the positive affirmation about yourself. I
yeah,
know what I can do.
yeah.
Have you ever felt kind of like as an imposter in the environment? Because if any time you were going to feel that, it would have been then. But have you ever felt like that?
Yeah, I could say I did have that imposter sense, that syndrome at the start of my career for sure, because yeah, I mean, immediately after seeing that, and then because that's only like a snapshot of what could be within an institute.
Mm-hmm.
When you actually come into the institute and you see nothing's really changed
Mm-hmm.
in that sense, it does make you feel like, what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Along with all the stairs and all the
Mm-hmm.
weird,
Mm-hmm.
like even one time I was in the lift and this lady asked me, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And
Wow.
I was kind of somewhat taken aback, but I was like, "Oh, I'm a PhD student here," and
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh." And it was very awkward. It was very awkward lift lift journey. But you know, despite all of these things, I, you know, you have to be your own hype man in a sense. You have to
Okay.
have your own, words of affirmation. You're here because you've been selected to be here. You're here because you have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You are good. You are worthy to be here, and you're worth, as long as you work hard and you show your strong work ethic and your enthusiasm, you can do well, just as well as anyone else.
Yeah.
So that's what I had to kind of instill in myself, for sure.
Have you had anyone kind of like now, as you're going through your PhD, who you can say you can talk to, can help you along the journey that you're on now? Is there anyone who can be your mentor at this new age and stage that you're in?
Well, a mentor, I could say for sure, is my supervisor.
Right.
I can he's David is always busy. He's very, very busy man, but I always find I can find some time to talk to him about
Mhm.
anything, not just about work, just life and in
Mhm.
general, and get his opinion on things. So I definitely can talk to him about these things. Um, but also I can talk to my old mentors, so the
Mhm.
people I interacted previously, and not only just in the work sense. I can talk to my friends and family,
Mhm.
because their opinions matter too, and they're just as valid as anyone else's.
Mhm. Mhm. So what you mentioned about the fact that you are you seem to be the only, not the only one, but that going into the institute, there were still very few Black and minority. What have you done, or what are you doing? Is it your responsibility or is it your passion? Tell me. Is there anything that you're trying to do to kind of like help others? So feeding forward, is there anything that you're doing to try and affect change?
Yeah, so currently I'm a part of the EDI forum
Mm-hmm.
at the LMS. So we started this forum about just over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to do is like understand, essentially, when we started this forum, we realized there wasn't much information about EDI in the institute prior to this forum. So what we're
Mm-hmm.
currently doing is collecting data
Mm-hmm.
to actually, ask questions about people's ethnicity, their heritage, their gender, all these protected characteristics, and then
Mm-hmm.
actually um, understand what needs to be done to enforce this change. So do we need to generate awareness? Do we need to sort out recruitment? What is the current problems that students
Mm-hmm.
and staff are facing? So that's within the LMS that I'm trying to do, I'm a part of, to try and invoke change. Um, but outside of the institute, I feel like at Imperial, I've been a part of several mentoring schemes.
Mm-hmm.
More recently, I'm a part of this Activate mentoring scheme where
Mm-hmm.
we're seeking to mentor people, students who are from Black heritage.
Mm-hmm.
This is its first year in this pilot scheme. So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, those are things that I'm a part of to try and invoke change
Can,
so
can you
far.
just can you just elaborate a bit on the Activate scheme? What is it? How does it work? What are you doing?
So the Activate scheme is essentially a mentoring scheme, which involves one mentor and one mentee to talk and communicate over, I believe it's over a year, and we are seeking to mentor students at Imperial, um, who are from Black heritage.
Mhm.
So I believe the deadline is actually closed now, unfortunately.
Okay.
But that is the idea of this Activate scheme, and it's in its first year. It's a pilot scheme, and not only just for Black students in the upcoming years, it will target people from minorities as well.
So that sounds like a really good initiative. I'm going to ask you a question. Why do you think that you're the man to help out in this field? I'm just throwing it at you. Why? Why do you want to do it?
I feel like it in a general sense, without mentoring, I wouldn't be here myself.
Right.
So it's almost an innate duty to give back, in a sense. But it's also to try and show that essentially people from minority ethnic backgrounds, to show that you can do it too.
Yeah.
And even though I'm only just in my PhD, you can get into a PhD too.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like I can do it, because I feel like I've had many experiences, but I've still made it, and I want to showcase that.
So I'm going to ask you another. I'm just wary that we've got guests on, other people listening. If anyone does have a question which they'd like to ask Quentin, then if you raise your hands, I'll come to you. All right. So the question that I wanted to ask you was this: what is it that you think that you would need? Because you're doing great stuff in trying to help other people to get to where you are now. So what is it that you think that you might need in order to get to the next level in your career?
That's a good question. I feel like I've been banging on about mentoring for the whole talk, but I do think mentoring and just having a network of maybe more broadly networking. I would like to have a network which can put me into contact and put me with the people in the right places in order to progress my career, like they've done before, right? So I feel like having a network and having mentors who can, support me through, like, maybe even applying for like, let's say I want to do a postdoc in the upcoming years, applying for a postdoc, getting into contact with the people who are, organizing such things. So I feel like that is the main thing that would allow me to develop my career.
So you effectively you want some support, you want someone who can or individuals who you can go to and ask them about the process.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
get a better understanding of what the process is, what you're going to be faced next, so you can prepare yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because
I think based on what you said earlier on, I think very much so, when you had your two stints, where you had your two vacation projects, which actually then led to your master's project. So you kind of, it was building up gradually. So having that insight was very useful for you to be able to progress to the next level. Am I right in that?
100%.
Yeah. So we need to have that pipeline so that you can talk to someone who can help you to get to the next level.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
I see a hand from Julia. So Julia, you've got a question for Quentin?
Yes. Hi, Quentin. Thanks so much for your interview. It's been really interesting to listen to. And I'm really interested in your experience of the PhD application process, which I think can be confusing already for anyone. And I wondered what your advice would be for the next person from a minority background who has to go through that process and may face the same daunting prospect of being the only one in the room again.
Yeah, advice. I'd say definitely. So the PhD application process, you typically every year there's like loads of different PIs offering different projects. I definitely say try and have a meeting or try and meet up in person with the PI first to talk to them about the prospects of being a PhD. I feel like being proactive in that sense definitely helps. definitely helps with the first impression, and definitely shows that you're very interested, and it shows your enthusiasm, which always makes a big difference. And in terms of actually, if you're actually in the interview where you're the only minority ethnic in that room, it may feel overwhelming, but you're there, and you're there for a reason. You have to instill those thoughts and feelings into yourself, because everyone's been invited to interview because they have something to offer, and you need to make sure that you have your mindset, which you're able to show it to the best of your ability. So don't get overwhelmed. Stay focused on the job that you have to do, which is to answer the questions of the interview. I think that's what I'd say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was something which, as you were speaking there, came to mind, because when you spoke about the first thing that you said was, make sure you go and you have a conversation with the potential PI, the potential supervisor. And then when I was thinking back about your experience, actually, because you had gone and had a word with you had seen your potential supervisor, and they knew who you were, when that rejection came, they could go and advocate on your behalf.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 So it wasn't, there's that saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Right. I'm going to change it a little bit. And I'm going to say, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Because if David if you hadn't had that interaction with David and he could have seen who you were, then he couldn't have advocated on your behalf.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to have people inside the rooms which we're not in.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So if we can have those advocates, I think that would be a really brilliant thing. I'm not sure if there's anyone else who has any questions, but I've got another question which I would like to ask. Right? And that question is in relation to, basically, it's in relation to, you're still a young man. So I can't ask you, what's the wow factor that you would say to your life so far? So I'm going to ask a slightly different question. And that question is, what advice would you give to your 16-year-old self about what they can achieve, even in this short space of time?
Ooh. That's a very good question. What advice would I give to 16-year-old me? Well, I definitely say never give up. I guess that's more of a cliche type phrase, but it's actually true, because there will be points at which you'll find hard, and you need to make sure you're persistent and you have that perseverance. So, because without that, you will never get what you want, right? So never give up, and to always be true to yourself, because if you deviate from that, you become someone who you're not. If you try to pander and act to other societal standards, you may fit in, but you're not going to be truly 100% happy. So definitely stay true to yourself, and try and do everything you can to make sure that your voice is heard, and to be proactive. Definitely be proactive, because without my proactivity, I wouldn't be here right now as well.
So you had the passion, you knew what you wanted to do, and you went out, and you can't just sit back on an idea. You have to act on it.
Yeah, definitely. Act on it.
Act on your ideas.
Yeah.
Quentin, it's been fabulous having you on as a guest, and I'm putting a challenge out to anyone else out there. This young man wants to be a professor, so we have to get him there, right? So I'm going to challenge myself to be a mentor to him and help him in whatever way I can, but I'm also challenging the others to help Quentin to get to where he needs to get to. He may change his mind, right? but it will be with good reason, and it won't be because he didn't feel that he wasn't supported. So Quentin, a really, really big thank you for sharing your experience with us. All right.
Definitely. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne, for having me, and thank you for everyone being here to listen live, and for everyone who's going to be watching later on YouTube.
Yeah. I'm going to just share with everyone what's going to be on next week. So next week, we're going to have the Invisible Warriors. And this is a group who I love to talk about because they're doing such great work. And they're going to give us an idea exactly how they're using this platform to raise awareness about sickle cell disease. So please tune in next week at same time, 12:30, to hear about the sickle cell and the Invisible Warriors. If you haven't seen any of the other Belonging interviews, then please go to the YouTube channel, tinyurl.com/belonging-IAO, and you'll be able to hear the over 100 episodes that we've done so far. So please go and have a look and have a read of some of the stories which have been out there from the guests, and Quentin's will be joining them. But all of this can only happen because people like Quentin, people like you, people like I are willing to share their stories. So let's keep sharing our stories, and let's keep finding a way to find what connects us and not what divides us. Thank you for being a guest with us on Belonging. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just 1 second.